Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Today we continue in our study of the Gospel according to Mark. We're in chapter 5, verses 30 through 34, which reads, "At once Jesus felt power go out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, 'Who touched my clothes?' His followers said, 'Look at how many people are pushing against you, and you asked who touched me?' But Jesus continued looking around to see who had touched him. The woman, knowing that she was healed, came and fell at Jesus' feet. Shaking with fear, she told him the whole truth. Jesus said to her, 'Dear woman, you are made well because you believed. Go in peace, be healed of your disease.'" That's Mark chapter 5, verses 30 through 34. Today we return to the presentation of Mark of the Lord Jesus Christ and his ministry. We find ourselves in Galilee, and the Lord Jesus is interacting with a crowd of people there, helping the sick and delivering the message of God's forgiveness. In verse 30 of today's passage we read, "At once Jesus felt power go out from him. So he turned around in the crowd and asked, 'Who touched my clothes?'" There were many there that day in the crowd pressing against the Lord Jesus. And this woman had been watching the Lord Jesus touch people all day long. And whenever he touched them, she noticed the people got better. So naturally, she thought, if he could touch people and they get better, I bet it'll work in reverse. If I touch him, I'll be better. So she set as the point of contact the very edge of his robe. And when she touched it, her faith in him activated the possibility of healing into fact. She was healed, and she and the Lord Jesus felt it immediately. The Lord Jesus always notices our touch of faith. This is why he brings so much attention to it in his word. Faith is vulnerable. We all have it. Everyone has faith. The real question is, what is the object of our faith? And then, how strong is that faith? In verse 31 of today's passage, we read, "His followers said, 'Look at how many people are pushing against you, and you asked, who touched me?'" Unaware that this woman had been healed, the disciples were baffled by this question of the Lord Jesus. Since they lacked full understanding of the events of that day, the disciples were clueless. This is what gets us into trouble most of the time, our lack of knowledge and understanding. In fact, throughout the scriptures, we see this played out over and over again. This is why faith in the God of the Bible is so crucial. Our daily lives are like a puzzle. Many of the pieces that are put into place are put there painstakingly. The fruits of the Spirit are of utter necessity for us to see the unfolding of his daily plan in our lives. One of the fruits of the Spirit that is most important for our development during our times of trial is patience. According to Proverbs 14:29, patient people have great understanding. I have discovered that my impatience stems from my lack of understanding. Patience always hitches a ride with understanding. Patience is a fruit of his Spirit, and it hangs from the tree of Galatians 5:22. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to wait. The key to patience is faith. Whether we are waiting for that special person or that dream job, when we take our small mustard seed kind of faith and wait around for God to place another piece on our puzzle, we will begin to notice the tapestry that will come forth. This has happened in my life so many times, and sadly I've failed at waiting far more than I have succeeded at being patient. In verse 32 of today's passage we read, "But Jesus continued looking around to see who had touched him." The Lord Jesus looked around to see this woman. He is relentless, and his pursuit of the heart made alive to him is dogged. For so long, the only reason anyone ever looked for this lady was to avoid her. But on that day, the Lord Jesus was different from those who lacked understanding. In verse 33 of today's passage, we read, "The woman, knowing that she was healed, came and fell at Jesus' feet. Shaking with fear, she told him the whole truth." Like Jairus, this ailing woman falls down before the Lord Jesus and proceeds to identify herself and to tell the Lord her story. In Isaiah 10:4 we read, "Without me they shall bow down among the prisoners, and they shall fall among the slain." This was her story, up until she met the Lord Jesus. And now she was bowing before the God of all creation. We cannot stand before our foes until we have learned to bow before our God. Worship is not something we do 1 hour on Sunday. Worship is a product of the frustration of not knowing what will happen next in our lives and waiting on the Lord to act in our lives. When we get to this point, we discover that we are being defined by the Lord, and in essence, we find ourselves worshiping him. In verse 34 of today's passage, we read, "Jesus said to her, 'Dear woman, you are made well because you believed. Go in peace, be healed of your disease.'" The Lord Jesus commends this worn-out lady's faith. In healing her, the Lord Jesus restored her to the community. That day, the Lord Jesus saw not an outcast, but a daughter. He saw not her uncleanness, but her faith. Many people in her world didn't have the time for her, but the Lord Jesus held off an urgent mission and an important man to look for her. This lady chose to believe that the power of the Lord Jesus to heal her was greater than the people's ability to alienate her. Like this unnamed woman, we often discover that our sorrow erupts from a deep place inside us. Most of our lives we've been excluded by others, but not so with the Lord Jesus. He has always included us in on his work in this world. There have been times when we have ached deeply for acceptance. He is the only one who is aware of such aches, and he accepts us just the way we are. Now, he loves us too much to let us remain as we are. But make no mistake about it, he loves us just as we are. He calls us sons and daughters. He sees what others don't. He sees in us the quality he values most in a human. He sees vulnerable faith. And when he sees it, he is pleased. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helpful to you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.